This is John Yates. I'm here with Bill Hiller, who is truly one of the key leaders in the technology community and a key historian, right, Bill?
In this market, I am, I think.
Bill and I have just been talking about the early days of the technology community here in Atlanta, particularly, I guess, Bill, we could characterize it as the microcomputer chapter.
The communications chapter of microcomputing.
That's an even better point, communications chapter. And we're actually in my conference room where we can see the Crosstalk Communications poster and the DCA poster. And Bill, for the benefit of those folks that were not around Atlanta at the time, which is probably most of the folks watching this video, first of all, tell us a little bit about DCA, Digital Communications Associates, how it came to be and how you got associated with it.
DCA was a public company based here in Atlanta, actually, I think founded in probably the 1980 time frame. And actually the guy who founded it, a guy named John Alderman, is the patent holder for statistical multiplexers out of Georgia Tech. They bought a company or merged with a company called TAC, Technology Association, Technology Analysis Corporation. Boy, I should remember that one. And I came from TAC, and we built a little product called IRMA, which was the first PC to mainframe product ever built.
And TAC was Waverly Graham's company.
Waverly Graham was the founder, and the chief engineer there was a guy named Andy Miyakawa. And we built this product called IRMA, which was only sold to corporate customers.
What did the IRMA board do?
It hooked an IBM PC to an IBM mainframe.
That was it?
That was it. That's all it did. It's everything and a lot.
And that was, I guess, referred to in the industry as the 3270
emulation board. We introduced that product in 1982 when IBM introduced the PC.
And that sold like hotcakes.
It was one of the top 5 largest selling products in the PC industry through the 80s. And we, because our customers had to have large IBM mainframes, our customers were the Fortune marketplace, and which allowed us to do significant projects, deals with Lotus, Microsoft, DBase, Compaq. We did a deal with every one of those guys, and in probably 1985-86 time frame, we owned 75-80% of that market. Our friends across town at Hayes owned 75-80% of the modem market. Our other friends at Scientific Atlanta own 85 or 90% of the set-top market. So up until the late 80s, we really controlled the kind of data communications market.
So let's summarize here. So you have DCA, Digital Communications Associates, which becomes a New York Stock Exchange company in the 80s.
1987, I think.
1987 is the leading provider of the 3270 IRMA emulation board, which is key because the IBM PC has got to hook up to the mainframe, and this board's got to be in every PC. Every PC. So they're selling them like every PC that's out there is going to connect to a mainframe is going to have this board.
Yep.
Then you have Hayes Microcomputer Products, Dennis Hayes Company, and they're out there selling modems.
Yep.
And they have a patent on an aspect of the modem handshake.
Yep.
So they're selling modems, and then you have Crosstalk Communications, Microstuff, and what are they selling?
Microstuff was the largest provider of software for Hayes modems, and actually was a member of the DCA family. We ended up at DCA acquiring or merging Crosstalk in, and so we controlled kind of between Hayes and DCA, we controlled the entire PC communications marketplace.
And if I remember correctly, because as you may recall, Crosstalk was my client.
Yep.
I think you effectively bought them twice.
Yes.
We came up to the altar and decided we didn't want to proceed, and then about 6 months later we
actually Les and I think I actually convinced Les to do that. Les and I sat down over at a Comdex, I think, and kind of came to a meeting of the mind to do that deal.
Okay, so we're now in the late 80s, and what we have here in town, literally up 400, within probably 3 exits of one another, we have the leading communications software companies in the country, leading communication hardware companies in the country, and most of the communication that's going on in the microcomputer world and micro to mainframe world is coming out of Atlanta.
Yep.
Okay.
That's true.
What happened?
Basically what happened is I think, management took their eye off the ball a little bit in both companies, and didn't. I know I can speak internally at DCA because I was there.
Right.
We didn't make the proper. DCA management wouldn't make the proper investments to continue to maintain those positions. Tried to move into some other markets that we really shouldn't have moved into.
Well, let's talk about that a second, because it's moving into other markets, because DCA went through a dozen acquisitions, right?
But all pretty close in the same market. We bought TAC, we bought Crosstalk, we bought a peer-to-peer local area land company called 10Net. We bought our biggest competitor in the 3270 business called Forte,
right?
Which gave us a West Coast base.
I remember.
And we bought a T1 multiplexing company for our network division. So we did 5 mergers in 4 years.
Were there any that didn't work, or that shouldn't, in retrospect, should have been done?
I having been involved, I had the unique. I was incredibly lucky because I was involved significantly in every one of those acquisitions at a very young age. I got really lucky on that front. The one that we shouldn't have done we shouldn't have done 2. 10Net, which was the peer-to-peer networking company, the structure of the deal really wasn't conducive to make it grow.
Right.
And we probably shouldn't have done the T1 multiplexing deal. We probably should have done a bridge deal.
Interesting. Now, look at DCA and compare it with Hayes. Hayes was also leader in the modem market. One could argue complementary with DCA, and Dennis also went off and made acquisitions too. Did any of those stick?
No. I mean, the one, he went off and tried to get in the database business, which was a disaster.
Right. I can't remember that product name.
Please.
Please, yes.
I don't know why my memory's good on that stuff.
I'm sure there's a warehouse of Please software somewhere around Atlanta.
And I think the other, Dennis got distracted with some other issues and really, again, took his eye off the ball and didn't let some really, really competent people that he had in his organization run the place.
Right. And what about now? We look at the situation, all of a sudden we roll it forward to the 21st century in Atlanta. We still have Scientific Atlanta, but it's Cisco.
Right.
We really don't have much in the way of what was left with DCA and DCA. Hayes and Microstuff, do we?
No, well, Microstuff is Crosstalk completely gone. We do have some of those developers that are actually resurfacing, doing some really interesting stuff in the mobile space, and they know how to do it because of networks. The DCA team pretty much flown to the four corners. Few people around doing some things, but nothing significant. And the Hayes team, there's a couple of those guys floating around, but they kind of flew and have passed on.
Right, and it was obviously sad news about Gary Betty and his passing away about a year ago, I guess.
Yeah, about a year ago.
Talk to us just a second about the DCA culture. It was unique because if I remember correctly, it was one of the first companies here in town that sort of did a different kind of an approach, so to speak.
Well, the CEO of DCA is a guy named Bert Nordine, was a guy named Bert Nordine, and Bert followed the HP model, and the open office, all cubes. Even he had a cube. Mm-hmm. He was CEO and chairman, and the president, Jim Ottinger, he had a cube. Everybody had a cube. There was no offices. There was a bunch of conference rooms, and that was kind of different. And we were actually the first corporate first corporate entity in Windward Park in Alpharetta.
Well, I remember getting off on that exit when we were selling Crosstalk to you guys. Get off the exit, and they said take a right.
And you couldn't take a left.
You couldn't take a left, and only to the right that I could see was farmland for about 10 miles.
That's about right.
And I guess Alderman Drive, which is still there today, named after John Alderman, the founder of the company.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, if you compare those days to now and starting a company, do you think it's easier now to start a technology company than it was in the 80s?
I think there's some things that are easier and some things that are harder. Easier then was the opportunities were easier to define. It was much easier to kind of go, yeah, there's a need than it is today. Today everything has to be very, very big niches, but very verticalized and very specialized. So there were big horizontal opportunities. What DCA did, what Crosstalk did, what Hayes did, what SA did, Scientific Atlanta. So that was easier. I also know because when I left DCA with Jim Ottinger to start a company, we were probably one of the first venture-backed companies ever done in Atlanta in 1989. We raised money from out west, from the West Coast, technology venture-backed companies here, and it still, getting money here is better than it was in 1980, but still pretty tough.
Right.
And I think those are the two big changes. If I think about it, I think that if I look at Atlanta, and I love Atlanta. I've lived here for 30 years, and I'm not planning on moving. We have a tremendous asset that we don't take advantage of, and that's Georgia Tech.
Right.
We haven't figured out as a community. John's done great work, but he's about the only guy done yeoman work of trying to figure out how to build and keep companies here.
Right. Well, it's interesting as you look back at there's a chapter in the technology history of Atlanta, and you not only know that chapter, you live that chapter.
Yeah.
And this communications area or era was one that very few people know about. So I appreciate you sharing it. Take just a second and tell folks what you're doing now, Bill.
Right now is what I'm doing is just in the last 45 days I was involved in a telecommunications company which we have successfully sold, had an event, which is a good thing. And now I'm looking at a couple of very interesting local technology plays. I've got as I said, pure lot of luck, but have been involved in some very, very successful companies, DCA and others, and founded a bunch and trying to take my skills and reapply it into the entrepreneurial world.
Well, Bill, I can say as someone that lived a lot of this serving as a lawyer representing companies alongside
and me
and you that your contribution to the community has been significant, and it's great to have a chance to talk with you today and for you to share with me and the listeners on my blog what's happened in the past in the technology community in Atlanta.
My pleasure.
Thanks.